What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and life coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, but more importantly, those quiet little stories we tell ourselves. Join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online, on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in on Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited about our special guest. Hello, Ashley. She's waiting in the wings.
Hello, hello. How are you?
And I am so good and so excited to have you on here. And this is going to be one great show. And we have so much to talk about because I was just saying to Ashley, she has so many incredible stories, stories of triumph, sad stories, stories of how she turned things over. We all have those stories, right? But the thing is, a lot of times we don't feel safe or comfortable sharing those. And when we can let those stories out and get those stories into the light, then they can't harm us anymore, right? We can share those stories as an inspiration to others. And really, as I mentioned in the intro, it's those quiet little stories that we tell ourselves, those ones in our heads that we're afraid to share with anybody. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Ashley's story. Let me tell you a little bit about her because she's pretty incredible. She was very modest here, I see on her bio. So I'm going to interject a few things. Ashley is a meditation teacher as well as the president and founder of One Mission, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping children fighting cancer and their families. She is also an incredible author, and I just want to show you her book right here, The Unspoken, which I'm in the midst of reading. It is a soul's reflection on healing from abuse, neglect, and chronic pain. And let me tell you, get your tissues ready when you read this because it is so beautiful. And so I'm super excited to have you on. And Ashley just wants to share these incredible stories. So welcome, Ashley. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for asking me to be here. I'm so happy that the universe had us align.
Yes, me too. Absolutely. And you're calling in from your meditation room, which is a beautiful place to be. It's got a lot of great energy in there. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this book, like I described it, I think when I first told you, it was just so heartfelt. The way you wrote this book is just truly as if you are just talking to one of your best friends and you are just so sharing from a place of vulnerability and beauty that I think is missing from a lot of texts today. Tell me, what was it like writing that? What was it as an experience for you? Because I know, books can take you all over the place as you're in the midst of writing them.
Well, you mentioned earlier, like those stories that we tell ourselves. I carried this story with me from the time that I was really little, which was like, I wasn't smart enough. I'm not smart enough. So I actually never had an intention to write a book because I always believed I wasn't smart enough and that I wasn't articulate enough, or, I wasn't going to write as well as all the million authors out there. But fast forward, as the book describes, I collapsed into chronic migraines. My life completely stopped. And I'm sure we're going to get into that. But how the book was born was out of my very first therapy session with a chronic great chronic pain coach who I'm still working with now. And I thought it was going to be like everyday therapy. So I started to like unleash my whole story with her. And she politely paused and said, your story is really important to me, but I want to start with how you're feeling today. And of
Mm.
course, I ended up bawling and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure we'll get to that too, about like what that felt like for me to have somebody ask me like how I was feeling in the moment. But I finished the therapy session and I thought to myself, well, I'm sure she's still going to want to know about my childhood. So we were in lockdown. So, you know, we weren't going anywhere. I opened up my computer and I started like chronologically putting my life on paper.
Wow.
And again, like no intent to write a book. And so it became this really like amazingly cathartic experience where I just kept telling stories. And one day, again, we're in lockdown and my husband and I would send each other text messages like, meet you at the bar. So in the basement. And so he was like, I'm down at the bar. And I was like, okay, I'll be right there. I looked down on my Word document and I had something crazy like 45,000 words or something like that. I forget how many words it was,
Wow.
but I Googled it, like how many words are in an average novel? And I was like, I passed the number. So I closed the computer down. I went down to the bar and shooting the shit with my husband. And I was like, so I think I wrote a book. And that's kind of how it happened. And then there's, you know, all sorts of things that had to go into making my thoughts a book with an editor and all that. But that's kind of how it happened.
That's unbelievable. I really think that I've not ever heard the story of a book like that because, right, like it was an intention like you didn't even realize you had, right? You just wanted to document it. You wanted to get it down. You wanted to understand. And I love that beautiful unfolding because I think the universe always had a bigger, obviously, message for you in there. Um, so was it cathartic for you? How did it feel to, you know, go back and think about all those things? Could you get a different perspective on it when you look back now?
Yeah. Well, the grace that I had was that I was in therapy, right? So I think they played off of each other really well. It was chicken or the egg thing, right? Like, did I write about it in a chapter and then bring it to therapy to talk about it? Or did I talk about it in therapy and then it birthed a chapter? I'm sure it was a lot of both throughout the whole thing. You know, I think I should say, I know what I learned differently in this therapy than I had in all the other therapy sessions that I'd ever had in my life before was that it wasn't just about telling the story. Because as survivors of trauma, which there's probably a million of your listeners are, and we all have trauma, right? Capital T, big T, little t, all that doesn't matter. It all kind of resides the same in the body, but it's all about giving the voice to the emotions. And I think what I was doing my whole life was telling the story with like my intellect and not telling the story with my body. Do you know the difference,
Totally.
right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so writing it, because I was bringing myself back, it was like an embodiment. It was like my whole body was involved in it. And so honestly, my migraines had a huge relapse when I first started writing, which now of course makes perfect sense to me. But so for me, it was extremely cathartic. And because I had that safety net of a really good therapist, I was able to explore in a really healthy therapeutic way what happened and kind of sit with it in a way. Whereas before, when I would like tell a story or two, it was like with like an armor on. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. To get through the story.
Yeah. And also to like even protect myself from like the response of the person hearing the story. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
I totally do.
So it was a totally different experience than I'd ever had before. And I remember feeling like I gave birth after, and a lot of writers say that, like, I just feel
Yes.
like I gave birth, but I went to the doctors, like my regular functional doctor for my annual checkup. And so she was going through the results with me and she said, by the way, you need to write another book because you've never looked so good on paper.
Wow. I
And I was
believe
like, great. Yeah. So it was
Keep
really
writing,
cool.
lady.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so cool because the body, right? The body keeps the score, right? That's what the book is.
Yes.
Um, Especially with the trauma stuff. And I love what you said about giving a voice to that emotion, right? I
Mhm.
mean, in this society nowadays, people I feel like people don't even know how to experience or express an emotion. They
Mhm.
don't realize it doesn't just get stuffed down or numbed out. You feel it. And when you feel it, it's not that scary because it just passes through you. It's when you
Right.
hold on to it or you don't process it that it comes out sideways and then the body starts holding on to the stuff.
100%.
You
I mean,
know?
like it's as really simple as, chronic back pain,
Right.
right? Like that's the most common chronic pain thing,
Mm-hmm.
or chronic stomach aches. I had chronic like pelvic and abdominal pain before my migraines hit.
Mm-hmm.
I put those pieces together afterwards, but the whole time my body was screaming for attention. Like,
Yeah.
we're drowning here. Like, I need help.
Yeah.
And so, and in my practice, I used to have a hands-on practice where I would actually see clients. I talk a lot about that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so many people that the universe brought me that had chronic pain. And I was, what even knowing what I know, saying something to them like, can you tell me how you feel about that? They literally look at you like you're speaking a foreign language. And you're right. Most of us are like in the trenches, getting up every day, fighting the good fight, doing what we have to do for our families and our friends and the kids and work and all that. And we really, in fact, don't stop to feel much, and some of
Totally.
us have a crash and burn, and that's
Yeah.
our wake up call. And some of us don't. But
Mm.
then some of us just feel like they're kind of like, floating through life and don't really feel that good, but don't know why, or they're tired, or the
Yeah.
relationships aren't that meaningful, or, they just feel disconnected. And that's the same thing, right? It's just like your body's telling you in a different way.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, we could go on, I
Oh,
feel like we need a bottle of wine for this conversation.
we do. And I love that because you said so many amazing things in there. And, sometimes it is a crash and burn. Sometimes the body will stop us. Hey, hold on. You must pay attention to this. And I always say, why wait for that? Right. Like,
Yeah.
and it's that feeling of uncomfortableness. I mean, a lot of my clients come to me too when they are just like, oh, they've got it all, right? They're successful women. They are making the money. They've got the career. But I feel this hole inside of me that is like,
Mhm.
I'm not satisfied. Where's the
Yeah.
joy, right?
Yeah.
Where is the joy? And it's funny because when you ask, and especially women, because that's really who I work with, what it is that they love, when they get to
Mhm.
be, sort of middle age, they have no idea. They know what everybody else loves,
Mhm.
but we have no idea what it is that we love or what are those dreams that we gave up on, right? Because like
Mhm.
you said, you just in the groundhog day,
Yeah.
you wake up and every day is the same. You go to the job, you
Yeah.
do this, you want to do that, you think about that, but you never really get to it,
Right.
and what are those things, so the universe brought you this book as a way to heal and feel those emotions. And I love that you were hands-on
Mm.
Reiki master too.
Yeah.
And because that's what the world needs, right? Is and
Yeah.
and I find that Reiki and of all the things, and there's so many wonderful modalities. I love that you are into functional medicine as am I, is so good for the healer as well. Right.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that we do to help other people that also heal ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's really, really, really powerful. I love that
Yeah,
story.
I mean, two things that I was thinking about when you were talking is one, the whole joy concept. So for those that are listening who that resonated with them, um, the inability to experience or find joy oftentimes can be rooted in childhood trauma,
Mm,
because joy is like the ultimate form of vulnerability. I can't feel
right.
joy because
Right.
something bad's about to happen, or I could
Mm,
get in trouble for being happy, or like there's a whole slew of reasons why an adult has trouble finding joy.
hmm
And a lot of it, that for me came from, being told to be quiet. And
hmm
it was, for me, it was all about survival. and I talk obviously a lot about that in my book, but there was no time for joy because I was preparing for the next shitstorm that, as an only child and an abusive mom, alcoholic mom. But so as an adult, joy is extremely uncomfortable for me. Even though I
So
work on it
interesting.
every day,
Mhm.
I'm like 80% better
Mhm.
in the last 5 years than ever before. But joy, and then of course the universe keeps giving you ways to heal that, right? So
To feel
Nicholas,
that. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
son got cancer. My niece ultimately passed away after that. And there was all these moments for me to, be alive and be present. And it was just too scary for me afterwards, right? To feel
Yes.
joy because I
Yes.
was like, oh, well, something bad's going to happen.
Oh,
My nervous system
yes.
got trained
Yes.
that something bad was going to happen. And so finding joy, and I talk about this in the book as well. It's not just about like waking up in the morning and saying affirmations in the mirror. Sometimes that works for people, but if it doesn't work for you and you literally think it's horseshit, I think that there's like deeper stuff underneath that could be, that could be explored.
Yes.
When was the first time you had a joyful experience? At what age? And what happened? When was that taken from you?
I love
And
that.
why?
Yeah. I love that perspective so much. So, and why? And what do I need to feel safe enough to start to
Yes.
feel more joy in my life? How can I
Yes.
bring my nervous system back into calm? And something else that popped into my mind when you were talking and what you were saying was so brilliant, is that, I heard Brené Brown one time say, you can't selectively numb. And I didn't really
Mhm.
get it at first, right? And what she's saying is we're in this numb out culture. I'm going to numb out with, even though you think you might not be, you are. A bowl of ice cream or Netflix, or
Mhm.
maybe it is booze or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Um, it's a distraction, right? So we don't have to
Mhm.
feel what we're feeling. But
Mhm.
what we don't realize is when we're pushing down all those yucky feelings, the yucky ones, the stress, the anxiety, the judgment of ourselves, the shame, the guilt, all
Mhm.
those things that we don't want to feel, we're also numbing down our joy and our
100%.
happiness. And
Mhm.
that's the piece I never really saw the connection. I was like, wow, you can't selectively numb. If you're numbing everything.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if and that's what a lot of people do, and it's okay to own that and say, hey, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't want to numb anymore. I want to
Yeah.
feel that joy. And I love that you brought that out in what you were saying. We
Mhm.
deserve to feel that joy. We're humans. We're actually
Mhm.
here to live with joy.
Yes.
So I love what you said. If that's not, it's a symptom of something else. And
Mhm.
let's help you figure out what that is. I love that.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
100%.
beautiful. I think this is a really nice time to take a quick little break, you guys. Don't go anywhere. I know you are hanging on Ashley's every word. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. We're with Ashley Haseotes, and this is incredible. I mean, she has so much wisdom to share. I'd love if you would share. You told me the story, and it was just like super chill inducing. Let's talk about Nicholas and what happened to him and his cancer journey and how that sort of crumbled you into your migraines, as you say.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. So my son Nicholas, who's now 18, graduating high school tomorrow, actually. Yep. Praise
Wow,
God.
that is so. The timing is amazing. Wow,
I know, right?
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So when Nicholas was, well, actually, Nicholas's story actually starts before, um, like my story with cancer starts
Mm-hmm.
before Nicholas got diagnosed. So I don't know if I told you this, but
Sure.
when I was in the mortgage business for 8 years, got married, had Nicholas, and my husband really wanted me to stay home. And I agreed to it at the time because I was like, yeah, I gone through 2 refi booms and I was like, F this is so stressful. But then when I became a stay-home mom, I just was like yearning to be back at work.
Hmm.
So long story short, my husband and I agree that I'm going to get into quote unquote philanthropy, and rather than go back to work. That's hilarious now that you think about where One Mission is today. But
Right.
we have this fundraiser at our house. We're like really young, like in our early 30s. Some of us don't all have kids. Some of us have one kid. Nicholas was like 5 months old. And so we have a bunch of people at our house. We had a fundraiser for St. Jude
Wow.
because I wanted to, give back to kids.
Hmm.
And so it was so long ago, they sent us a VHS tape And we had one of those like TVs with the VHS
Yes,
thing attached to
connected.
it. Yep, connected. So we were watching this video all night long. Ari gets up on the coffee table and he's like, look, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have a sick child. Please, could we do this every year? Blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, Nicholas got diagnosed with cancer.
Wow. Again, full body
So
chills. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So I think the reason that I did that first was
Mhm.
the universe was giving me the knowledge to know that Nicholas was sick.
Mm.
Right. So
Mhm.
like, just like everybody else who's listening who has children, they get a virus, it can be nasty, but they typically get a smidge better every day.
Mhm.
There's some glim of, well, Nicholas was getting worse every day.
Mhm.
So finally, after the second time to the PD, he sends us to the ER because he's like, you know what? I think it's time for labs. Like, this is worrying me. So we get to Newton Wellesley Hospital and we do the labs. Ari is lying down in the bed with Nicholas on his chest, and I'm kind of pacing. And the attending physician turns the corner. She was probably like in her 50s with tears in her eyes. And I was like, oh, you know what, the word. And I was like, this isn't going to be good. So she said, I'm really sorry to tell you that you have a very sick little boy.
Oh.
And I was like, so does he have cancer? And she said, I think so. And I said, well, how do you know? And she said, well, his white cells are like 55,000. And I was like, well, what are they supposed to be? And she was like 8,000. And so she's like, I ordered an ambulance. They're going to bring you guys to Boston Children's. And I was like, okay. So I described this moment in my book. I think it's like the prologue.
Yes. Mhm.
And so literally, I'm so glad Ari was lying down because he absolutely would have passed out. So he's looking at me like, oh my God, what is happening? And I just looked at him and I put my hand on his hand, which was on Nicholas's back. And excuse me.
Mhm.
But I'm just gonna take a sip.
Yeah, take some water. My whole body is filled with goosebumps again.
Thanks. So I put my hand on his chest and, oh, sorry, my hand was on Nicholas's back,
Mhm.
Ari's hand. And he was like, we're going to lose him. Like, is he going to die? And I was like, he's not going to die. This is going to make us better. The whole family is going to come together. Like, this is going to make us stronger than ever. And he was like, how do you know? And I was like, I know the same way that I knew he was sick when nobody else knew.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
And
It's a mother's intuition.
yeah. And so, we as a family lived in the hospital at Boston Children's Hospital for 188 straight days.
Wow.
And so that's 6 months. And he almost died twice. I had to push the code button one time. I actually don't know if I wrote about that. Excuse me.
I don't
in the
remember
book.
hearing the code button. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
scary as
so
anything. Mhm.
so scary. And yeah, so I was just so grateful that, that he made it through. And, he doesn't remember anything. Thank God.
Right? And now he's graduating tomorrow
Mhm.
from high school.
Mhm.
It's such an amazing story.
He's graduating. Yeah. And, I think that that was a moment in my journey where I don't know if there was so much to learn from that as it was just yet another kind of notch on my belt of like bad things happen.
Mm.
I think, and the reality is, by the way, like bad shit does happen to people. It happens. It
Mhm.
doesn't always happen, but it can happen. And what we do with it and what we take away from it is honestly the key. I don't
It
think
is.
any of us can protect ourselves from not anything bad happening to them.
Right. Exactly.
So, and my nervous system just was already tanked. And so Nicholas, I went into survival mode, even more so than I already was, by the way. I was in survival mode when I had Nicholas from my childhood. And then I just carried on. Like my whole focus was, and as every parent of a sick child or a disabled child or whatever, our sole focus is them.
Absolutely.
And 100%, and rightfully so. And nor would I ever ask a parent to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's extremely crucial at a certain point of that journey to take care of yourself. And I never did. Because what I
Self-care.
ended up doing, what I ended up doing is going right from Nicholas's story to then my niece passing away, which I do talk about in the book.
Yes.
Then taking care of my brother and sister-in-law, and then opening up a Reiki practice and taking care of hundreds of clients, and never, I mean, literally abandoning myself over and over and over again, because I felt like if I could take care of other people, that was what I was put on this earth to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that would somehow feed your soul. Right. And,
Yes.
but you're giving, 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 giving,
Yes.
giving. And yeah, it's the whole oxygen mask thing, right?
100%.
Got to put it on yourself first. But that's hard. I mean, when it's our kid and it's your firstborn, because
Mm-hmm.
you and I had, we're both, I ended up in children's, not as long as you did, but that's a scary thing no matter how long you're there for.
Yes.
And as your firstborn, having that sort of introduction to parenting puts you in crisis management mode
Mm-hmm.
for the whole rest of your parenting journey,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
unless you can intervene that somehow,
Yeah.
and I still find myself somehow reacting, another friend and I, we call it mom ER, but mom ER comes up, you
Yeah.
know, and like you said, it's like, you're always reacting, and how do you calm that? Like, what worked for you to calm your nervous system? Because I think so many people don't realize that that is the problem. That is
Yeah.
what they're struggling for. You're looking for the next shoe to drop, the next thing to happen.
Yes.
That book I
Yes.
remember years ago, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Did you ever read that?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where I think it's super hard for people. How do you flip that switch? How do you change that story that says bad shit happens all the time?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How did you do that?
Well, I mean, that's really what the whole book is about, right? It's about the unspoken. And so when we have that, like, I don't want to call it victim mentality, but it kind of is, right? Like, bad shit
Yes.
happens to me.
Yes.
That's really born out of survival mode.
Yep.
You're preparing yourself for something bad to happen so that when it happens, it won't be so devastating.
Mm,
But the underlining thing of that truly is, when the first bad thing that happened, you weren't allowed to be scared, or nobody took care
right.
of you, or you didn't ever talk about it. And so that stuffing down of that
Mm,
very first big thing that happened to you,
mm-hmm,
that's where you start healing your nervous system,
mm.
by allowing that part of you to share the story. It's almost like a little kid, you, right? As a little kid,
Yeah.
like, you're never
You're,
going to believe what happened. When we were 8 years old, this wicked, scary thing happened. And like, that part of you, whatever age,
mm-hmm,
needs to tell that story. And the adult needs to listen, and
right.
then needs to care. Like, there was so many times in my journey of getting better where I literally put my child, me, on my lap
Yeah.
and talked to myself the way that I would today to my own children. Like, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. That must have been so scary. Like, tell me more about that. I want to hear the
Mm,
whole story.
mm-hmm.
And like, that alone sends messages to your nervous system that you're safe.
Safe. Yes.
And then you can build on top of that, and you
Mm-hmm.
can literally do things like words of affirmation, or you can have something scary pop up and you can use breath work to calm your nervous system. And then over time, again, your nervous system gets these sensations and these messages like, I can feel and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that. You're just rewiring what was put in there
Yes.
when you experience the trauma, without really, without really having those kind of tools and understanding that's our inner child. And I
Yeah.
love what you're describing. A lot of people call it reparenting yourself, right?
Yeah.
Being the parent to yourself that you didn't get, that reassurance, because I tell my clients this all the time, the brain, it's just the brain doing its job. That's its
Yeah.
job. We're all
100%.
wired like that. And when
Yeah.
you can normalize it for people and they can wrap their minds around, oh, they're walking around thinking something's wrong with them, right? But
Yeah.
we're all like that. The
Yeah.
brain is programmed. I love the neuroscience piece because we're all programmed like that. The brain is trying to remind us, keeps reminding us, oh, remember that time, remember what
Yeah.
happened, be
Yeah.
prepared. But when we can stop and say, oh, like you said, address the actual issue with our inner child and calm and soothe our own selves and learn how to soothe our own selves. And I think it is beautiful because I did really start to understand things better when I was a parent too, right? It gives you such a different perspective. Oh, here's actually, because you don't really know what you needed as a kid, but you
Right.
know now what that child and you needed, right?
Right.
So why not
Exactly.
reparent yourself to give yourself just what you needed? I love that.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And as you do that, you rewrite that story and make it okay for that child to feel that way. Because
Yeah.
in our minds, we've told ourselves we're not okay. There's so much
Right.
shame around it. That should have never happened. And
Right.
that story, that shoulda, woulda, coulda story, those stories are the worst. They just keep us stuck, right?
I remember doing that part. We call it can also be referred to as parts work.
Sure.
Yep. So I remember
Yep.
doing that parts work.
Mhm.
And, one day, I think I actually wrote about this in the book too. I was at acupuncture and I was like, I had a bad migraine. My anxiety was off the charts. And I was like, just basically, like, I kept saying to him, like, just fix me. Please just fix me. Like, I was like so desperate to feel better. And he
Yeah.
was like, okay, like, put all the needles in. And he was like, I want you to do what you know best. Close your eyes and meditate. And I was like, oh, great. I know how to do that. Sure. Closed my eyes, went back to my mantra. And then within seconds, I found myself as a little girl at my front door of the house that I grew up in.
Wow.
And it was like, and then I went on this whole journey and I walked into the front door and then I'm the adult and I can see the little girl running through the house and she's looking for my mother.
Oh,
And I'm like, baby girl, she ain't here. We're safe. We're good. And the little girl looked up at me like, she's not here. And I was like, she's not here. And then within a flash of a second, there was like 20 of me, 20 little, all ages. They were like, we all sat in this circle and we had like a meeting of the children. And it was probably one of the most profound moments of my entire life because it was almost like a spotlight would shine down on each child. And in this time period was when I was in acupuncture, each one came forward and they were like, I have to tell you what happened. And
wow.
they each had a story. And then afterwards, we had like like a kind of like a kumbaya moment where I was like, look, I can't get to all of you today, but I promise through my journaling, I'm going to let every single one of you tell your story until we're done. And I don't care if that takes us 5 years or 10 years, but your stories are important. And I really love you. And together we're going to get better. And I journaled to each child, journaled through me for probably the next year and a half.
Wow, that is unbelievable. And journaling is so powerful, as you know. People, I feel like, discount it because they think, oh, it's too easy. I just open a book and write. But
Yeah.
as we know, the power of journaling to really just get that out. Because
Yeah.
as you start getting it out, more comes, deeper, deeper, deeper work comes, right?
Yes.
I love that. That is an absolute beautiful moment. And what was probably 50 minutes at the acupuncture
Yeah.
felt like half a lifetime, right?
I
Like,
got in the car and I was like, what just happened? I actually voice recorded it because I was so blown away. The whole ride home, I was describing what had happened. I actually still have it.
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your next book right there.
Right.
That is so, again, full body chills over here. Like I'm constantly like, wow, turn the air conditioning down. That was really, really powerful. We're going to break real quick, everybody. Don't go anywhere. I know you don't want to go anywhere because Ashley will be right back with us. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good with Ashley. And your story is so moving. Like, I love how you talked about, the journaling and how all of these parts of you, all the children in you, which we all really have, if we can make it a safe place, how did you create that safe environment? And then how did you go from that to really making it this tremendous healing experience for yourself?
Well, again, having that pain coach and doing the parts work with her was kind of like where I started and the stepping off point. And I think it's really important for us to note that the way that I journal, there's a whole process to it. I actually have this as a class on my website if anyone wanted to ever purchase it. But
I love that.
yeah, it's like a guided one. It's all self. You don't take it live with me.
Sure.
But so it's you do like an inventory. You know, you have like the first like 10 or 15 like big life things. So you make these lists, and every day for 40 days, you go and you journal. And most people pick the easy topics first for obvious reasons. And then when you get to it, you just get into it. And it's like, so for instance, there was one, and you'll read this in my book when you get to this chapter, there was this one time where I blew my knee out in high school and passed out. I had to have, there was in a basketball game. The trainer's like, you have to go to the hospital. Call my mother. And I was like, look, I blew my knee out. You got to come pick me up and bring me to the hospital. It was literally in the town next door to me. And she was like, it's snowing, take the bus. Hung up. It was so embarrassing because the trainer was standing next to me and he's like, is she coming to get you? And I was like, no, she can't right now. So the shame of like hiding, like the fact that she literally hung up on me. Right. And so I had like knee issue on my list, and I waited for months because I didn't want to get to it. Anyway, you know, dear mom didn't come and get us. That's how I started that journal entry. And so you journal, but the beauty of the way this journal, they call it journal speak, is you do not keep them. So I ripped them up. I rip them up. Some people burn them, but the mere fact that you are deleting and trashing what you wrote gives your ego really the permission to just like kind of step out of the way, because the ego, if the ego thinks anybody is going to read it, you filter.
It's so true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought about that before. And it's symbolic and it's ceremonial and it's ritualistic.
100%. So for me, I did that. And like I said, I probably did it for close to 2 years, and I still do it. If I get a headache, you know, chronic pain it is what it is. Sometimes I get headaches. Sometimes I'm in patterns of headaches for a couple of days. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks, but I don't stop my life living. It's a totally different story now, but I'll journal. I just did it 2 days ago. And I was like, hey baby girl, like you've had a headache for a couple of days. Do you want to talk? Like, what's going on? Give me your top 3 things that are on your mind right now. And like, before you know it, 20 minutes have gone by and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize that I was so upset about these things. So, you know, the parts work, like I bring it into everything. One of the beautiful things that I took away from my healing journey is that I am no longer afraid to be me in every aspect of my life. Whereas before, I felt like I had to be a healer when I was a healer, a business person when I was a business person, a wife when I was a wife, a mother when I was a mother. But now that I'm integrated, I show up as myself in all facets. My husband and I are in business together now. And I'm really there's only 2 women in the whole company. I'm one of them.
That's cool.
And I think really because of the work that I do and what my husband and I even do together, we have like team meetings and we talk about our feelings. If you stop and think about that for a second, that's like mind blowing.
Totally. Yeah. With only 2 women in the whole company.
Yeah. And the reason that I did that and we do that is because every single person has triggers. Every single person has old trauma, and every single person on this planet comes to every scenario and experience with the glasses of their past experiences. And if you can understand that, and you can give your employees, your friends, your family, a safe place to be able to show up in their vulnerability, everything changes. When my employees can say like, I'm really worried that I'm going to fail you. I'm really worried about my job security. Like, you know, it's like, well, let's talk about that. Is that really here because of what we're talking about? Or is that your old stuff? You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so the safety of being able to like, just be and not hide.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to, I have a fear of being seen as stupid. Everybody that works for me knows that, right? Like it's a thing I have to work on. So if I stumble or I fall or I make a mistake, I have to work at allowing the shame to process through my body. And sometimes, by the way, guys, I cry at work.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And me standing in my power of knowing who I am and not being ashamed of who I am, I really do believe that because of those experiences, I'm healing the people around me.
Yeah, you are. You're embracing the whole of everything, the
Right.
good, the bad, the ugly, everything that we've been through, which is really our purpose here. It's a very
Agreed.
evolved way to think, is when we can embrace all of us, every piece of us, and understand. It reminds me a lot of Debbie Ford work, that we could, the dark side of the light chasers, that we can be everything at any time. And anytime something triggers us is because we're not owning, we've disowned that piece of ourselves.
Right.
Oh, she's such a bitch, you know? Oh, actually, maybe you're such a, right? It's like turning that back on yourself and saying, oh,
Yes.
where am I being a bitch? I wonder.
100%.
Right?
And
It's
people
like,
don't like to talk about that mirror. Like
no,
every single time we judge another person, it's because we see ourselves in that person, and that's a part of us we do not like.
exactly.
And that takes a really long time for a lot of people to sit to really embody that, but it's 1,000% true.
Absolutely. Digest it 100%, because we can be everything at any given time. We can
Yes.
all be. We can be
Yeah.
mean. We can be rude. We can be sweet. We can be
Yes.
kind. We can be manipulative. We can
Yep.
be understanding.
Yep.
And I feel like it is embracing all of us wholly human, because
Yeah.
that's
You
really,
know, and it's so interesting. There's a lot of judgment on people who are spiritual and healers when we
yes,
are human, right? Like,
right.
oh, you're swearing at people in the on the highway. I don't know how spiritual you are, right? There's a judgment of that. Well,
Absolutely.
being spiritual means in doing the work
Mhm.
means that I am accepting all of me.
Exactly.
It
That
doesn't mean
is
that I'm
beautiful.
perfect. It doesn't mean that I'm on the beam all the time. It means
Right.
that even when I'm off the beam, I still love myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're swearing at somebody in the highway,
Yes.
we're embracing that. It's the not denying, I feel like, is the big thing,
Yes.
because when we resist all that, it sucks so much of our energy, which is really underneath everything you're saying. Your energy was going so much that you were not able to heal yourself, right? Because we all do
Yes.
that. Our energy is going to deflect and manage all these things, especially when we have one image of ourselves that might be different than the image that the rest of the world sees, or our intentions are out of alignment. We're incongruent with ourself. And that's what this crazy, you know, abruptive behavior is all about, because we're not in congruence with ourselves. We're not accepting of ourselves. Therefore, we can't be accepting of other people.
100%.
And I love that. I feel like that is just the most beautiful way to think about healing, because that's the stuff that really is going to ripple out and affect the whole entire planet.
I agree. I mean, you know, I don't know. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but even during that crazy, and I probably still is, polarizing political time period we all had, everyone was triggered. Every single person was a triggered child on this planet. And really and truly, at the very basic core of it, we are all of those things. Every single person is all of those things.
Yep.
And when you can see, you don't have to agree and you don't have to accept, but you can say, I can see why you think that way. And I hear you when you say this is what is important to you, etc. But and people think that when they acknowledge a thought or a feeling of somebody, when it doesn't resonate with them, that they're accepting it. That's not what that is. It's just saying literally namaste. Like, my soul bows to your soul. We do not have to align. There's billions of people on this planet. We're supposed to be different. And so when I knew that I had gotten a little bit further in my work, when I could sit at the table and listen to people talk about politics and not have a panic attack.
Right. Absolutely.
Because I would literally
Right.
leave. I would get up and leave. I would be like, okay, I'm out. Because I'd be like, something bad's going to happen. Someone's feeling's going to get hurt. And was so triggered, so
Sure.
nervous.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. Think about how many people feel that way, right?
Mhm.
They don't even
Yeah.
want to have family gatherings anymore because people aren't even
Yes.
talking to families over this anymore
Yes.
because they're so divided.
Right.
But I love that. I see you. I hear you. I
Yeah.
understand why that's important to you. But I don't have to agree with you. But what you're
Yeah.
doing is validating.
Yes.
You're validating for them. And I think validation is something that a lot of people don't really understand.
Mhm.
But until we can validate each other and accept each other, even just at home with our own children
Mhm.
or our own spouses
Yeah.
or our own parents,
Mhm.
and validating and understanding and loving them anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my book, I talk a lot about, well, because we were writing it during COVID, but, my husband and I didn't agree on certain COVID protocols, but it was
Right?
super triggering for me. And it
Yep.
was a big deal. I mean, it probably got into at least 1 or 2 chapters,
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait
so.
to get to those. Yeah, but it's
Mhm.
so true. It's all that triggering. And when we can
Mhm.
let that stuff go, of course, we're going to feel better. We're going to feel lighter. That's where our health is going to come back online. We're going to be more
Mhm.
connected to, call it what you want, the energy that creates worlds, right?
Yeah.
When we can connect ourselves up, everything in the world is better. And
Yeah.
we can
100%.
really, right, see and appreciate who we are. But when we accept and appreciate ourselves, we're really just accepting and appreciating everybody around us.
Exactly.
Namaste, my friend.
Namaste, my friend.
This has been unbelievable. I know we can talk and talk for a lot longer because you have so many beautiful gems of wisdom to drop. And I know people are getting so much out of this.
Thank
Share
you.
with us where they can find out more about you. That course that you mentioned sounds amazing. Where can they find
Yep.
that?
So they can just search for Ashley Haseotes. It's either ashleyhaseotes.com or they can search for Veda, VEDA-healing.com. Both go to the same place.
All right, spell your name for
And
them because on radio we love
oh
to
yeah,
spell things.
yes, ASHLEYHAS as in Sam, E as in elephant, O T as in Tom, E S as in Sam. And I'm Ashley Has Love on Instagram. And the charity that I started, One Mission, is the word one mission altogether.org.
Awesome. And it's going to be in the show notes too. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart for sharing your beautiful heart and soul with
Thank
us.
you.
And
Thank you for having me.
you're so welcome. All the incredible wisdom that you dropped today. And if you guys want to find out more, you want to know when Ashley's show's coming out and then the next amazing show, just go to my website, carrierowan.com, and click on the button that says podcast and sign up for my email list, and you will be the first to know. I even share like incredible tips about stuff that Ashley and I might have talked about that we didn't talk about on the show. So get on there, sign up for that. And remember, it is never too late to live your best story. Be well, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.